It's the end of apple season, and I was finally able to get to our favorite orchard, Jackson's Orchard, to get some apples, and I'm going to make 3 things with each apple. So come along and see what I'm going to do. Hey friends, it's Barbara Sue at Kowalski Mountain, and welcome back to our channel. Now, our favorite orchard, Jackson's Orchard, which is in Bowling Green, Kentucky, just had their very last day, and we were able to get down there and we got a bushel of apples. I have a half a bushel of Fuji apples, and I have a half a bushel of Granny Smith apples. Now, we have plenty of applesauce on the shelves this year, so I'm not going to make that this year, but I am going to make 3 different things with every single apple. Now, first up, I'm going to be juicing the apples using my steam juicer, and I'm pretty excited about doing that. Now, the second thing that I'm going to be making is I'm going to make fruit roll-ups, and I'm going to use all the pulp that's left over from the juicing to make the fruit roll-ups. And then the final thing that I'm going to make is going to be apple scrap vinegar, and that will use all the waste and make a delicious apple cider vinegar that we will top up and use our apples in 3 different ways. Now, let's go ahead and get started. Now, these apples I buy are seconds. And what that just means is they're not the prettiest. They have blemishes or bruising. When you buy seconds apples, you need to use them up quickly because they will go bad more quickly. Now, I'm just going to mix these up and use them in the juice. Now, you don't actually have to peel them and core them to use them in the juice, but because I'm going to be making the fruit roll-ups with the pulp, I am going to do that step. So let's get started. Now, I have no idea how many apples I'm going to need to fill my steam juicer, so we're going to find out. Alright, now what I've done first is I just put an even mix of the Granny Smith and the Fuji into my sink. That way I know I have an equal amount of both kinds of apples. Now this is going to make a nice juice, and we're going to make a concentrate with that. Now, to process my apples, I do have an apple peeler, corer, slicer, and it's super simple and it's super fast. So you just take your apple, you load it, and then you just turn it. And you peel these all off, and I'm trimming them up a little bit. And I'm cutting them in half, and into my steam juicer they go. And that is it. All of this is going to become part of my apple scrap vinegar. So again, super simple. And that is it. scraps. Now, apple scrap vinegar is super simple. I have a gallon-sized jar. And I am just going to put my apple scraps in it. I've got cores. And I've got miles of apple peel. So we're just going to fill this jar up with apple scraps. Now that my jar is full, the next step is to add water. So you do need to add sugar to it, so I'm going to go ahead and measure my water so I know how much water I'm adding. And then we simply add 1 tablespoon of sugar for every cup of water that goes into our jar. So I have 8 cups of water. Let's see how much we use. Try not to spill it. So 8 cups, and I need more. That's about 2 cups. So we're up to 10. And that's about 12 right there. And I used about another 1. So we're going to say there are 11 cups of water in there. Now we'll add the sugar. So now I'm just going to add my sugar. And I do kind of want to mix that in a little bit, get it to go down at least. Now, the next 2 steps that I'm going to do, you don't have to do. They're completely optional, but I'm doing them. So the first one is that if you have any organic apple cider vinegar with the mother, that's very important, and Bragg vinegar has the mother in it, you can add this into your apple scrap vinegar to give it a boost. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to. And I'm just going to pour some in. Now the other thing that I'm going to do, and I'm a little full, Now the other thing that I'm going to do that you do not have to do, I am going to put a fermenting weight in it. I don't want to have any mold issues, and I have had some mold issues doing this in the past. So that's just going to push those apples down a little bit and keep them underneath. And that's my only purpose of adding it. You do not have to add the weight. This is one of those projects that I almost never see anyone add a weight, but it makes me feel good. And so I'm going to. Now what I'm picking out is all the little floaty pieces at the top. So I won't have any apples at the top. I will have the water at the top. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to cover it. And the very first gallon jars I ever bought came with these little cloth covers and the rubber bands to cover them. And I love that. But you can just use, you know, any type of towel or thing that you have, because this needs to breathe. And now this is just going to ferment. And we're going to let it do that. And then in a few weeks, we will have apple scrap vinegar. Now the rest of my apple scraps, I'm going to give to the cows. I do have another jar, but I also have plenty of apples. So I'm going to go ahead and give these to the cows before it gets dark. Come on, mamas. Come on, mamas. Over here. Come on. This is Kayana. She doesn't actually look impressed. Come here. Come on, girls. Come on. Dumb cows. Guess I'm going to take it to them. I've been feeding Prince separately, and I forgot the apples. And now he's over here waiting. The chickens really liked him. None of them are eating the apples. I guess the chickens are going to get them. Or the deer. Alright, so now it's time to get the steam juicer going. Now I went ahead and put on the water to get that boiling. And now we have the juice collection pot. And now we're going to add the apples. We're going to put the cover on, and we're going to let this do its thing. Now if you're new to the steam juicer, it has 3 sections. The bottom section is for water, and that's essentially where you make a double boiler. The middle section is the juice collection section, and it has a hole in the center that allows the steam to come up from the boiling water to the bottom of the colander. And then the top section is the fruit basket, and that's basically a giant colander that holds all the fruit. It's been about an hour that the steam juicer has been going, and it's looking pretty good. I'm not going to squish this down a lot because I am going to use the pulp. Now, according to the book that comes in the steam juicer, this takes about 2 hours. So we're going to give this another hour and see where we are. But let me show you where we are right now. So we're in about an hour, and that's how much they have cooked down. We're just going to let it keep on going. All right, so I'm about 2 hours into my juicing, and it's completely dark outside. I said I wasn't going to do this, but I decided to. I'm just going to crush up these apples a little bit. This is my potato masher. Now you can actually make applesauce from this. I make my applesauce completely different. So I didn't want to do that. I do think it's going to make great fruit roll-ups, and I might sweeten it with a little honey. But let's take a look at the juice. So there's the juice. Not as much as I expected. It's starting to rain, so I got to get my equipment out of the weather, but we're just going to open this up. Oh man. There we go. All right, it's almost Thanksgiving, and I'm trying to get all these projects ready so I can start my Thanksgiving cooking tomorrow. Now, I made the juice, and I have to tell you, I don't know that I loved the juicer for the apple juice. It really didn't yield very much, and we'll see how much in a little bit. Now, it did create a lot of applesauce, and I am going to be making fruit roll-ups with this puree. Now I have added a 1/4 cup of honey, and that's our Kowalski apiary honey, and also a tablespoon of cinnamon to the puree to give this a little more flavor. Now this is super simple. I'm going to spread this out on the trays, and I'm going to dehydrate it here in the dehydrator. Now I want to try to make this as even as I can. And I do have some chunks still in here. I did try to mash them up. They weren't being very cooperative. Pretty much it. Now you can certainly add a little bit more sweetener. Because I'm doing honey, the honey can get real sticky, and so I didn't want to go too much honey and then have problems later. All right, my jars for my apple juice are finally sterilized. Took forever, but they're finally done. And it's getting cool out here, so I'm going to pull a jar out, fill it up, put it back in to try to keep the jars from cooling too much. Now, like I said, this didn't make near as much as I expected. Might only get 1 quart. All right. So I have 1 quart. Thank goodness, I got 2 quarts. Now I have to say, this did not yield nearly as much juice as I expected. So I'm really glad that we're getting the benefit of having the fruit roll-ups and the apple cider vinegar, that we're getting at least quite a bit out of our apples. Now this jar is not quite as full as it should be. I'm going to process it anyway. Now these are going to process in the water bath canner for 10 minutes. Now if you notice, this is actually my pressure canner, but I'm using it as a water bath canner. And the reason I did that today was because I felt that this pot was a little bit smaller and I could get away with less water. My water bath canner holds more, and so that's why I chose this method. Now the disadvantage to using a pressure canner instead of a water bath canner is there's no rack to lift and lower the jars. And I do really like that feature, but if you're tight on money and you can only choose one, this pressure canner can do both jobs. All right, the jars have processed for 10 minutes. So this apple juice will be shelf stable. Now usually this makes a concentrate, so you can add some water to it. And I also didn't put any sugar in it, so you can add sugar to sweeten it up if you want. Now we tend to use less sugar, so we'll see. I won't make any promises how we're going to use it. So the only thing left is we will wait on the fruit roll-ups to process. That's going to take a while, and I'll be back to show you how they come out. Sorry friends, you can see it is a cloudy day here in Kentucky, and we've had a few of them, so we've had to turn on the generator because we have really run down solar in the last few days. Now the fruit roll-ups are finished, and we can definitely tell why they call this fruit leather. So let's check it out. So here's what they look like. And I ended up letting this go overnight. When I went to bed last night, it still wasn't anywhere near close. And so I just left it overnight, and I really thought it would be over dry, but it's really perfect. So let's see. Now I have a dehydrator that I've had for like 20 years. And so I have the round trays with the jelly roll trays. And I'm just going to peel that off. Whoops. And I actually meant to bring a knife, but I didn't. And I'm just going to put this in my jar. So now that it's started, it should come off a little bit easier. Whoops. Now some of it is drier than others. Actually, I'm going to refrain. This is a little over dry. I tried a tray earlier. It wasn't this dry. Let me try a different tray. Now it's also cooled a little bit since I turned off the dehydrator. So this tray is a lot more pliable than that other tray, which means I might have got it a little bit thicker. And you can see this one is rolling a lot nicer. That one's much better. I think I'm going to need a bigger container. So I could have gotten up in the middle of the night and checked on it. I didn't. And I actually slept in, so that probably didn't help either. But that's okay. It's still very usable and we'll eat it up. So with one apple, I was able to get fruit leather, apple juice, and apple cider vinegar. Now in total, I have 5 trays of fruit leather, 2 quarts of apple juice concentrate, and I have 2 gallons of apple cider vinegar. So that's not too bad from probably less than a half a bushel of apples. So pretty happy with all that. As always, friends, we appreciate you watching our videos, especially all the way to the end. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, hit that button. We'd love you to be a member of the Kowalski Mountain family. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.